Like how she decided to do what she wanted, as in crawl into my sweater and bathe herself, while I'm literally wearing a shirt that shows a picture of a cat knocking a glass off of a table that says, "I do what I want." Hey there, this is Foggy Fiction, and I am Haley. I'm a writer living with mental illness, doing my best to show that mental health does not dictate talent or worth, and hoping to encourage others to chase their dreams. So you're writing about a character who has anxiety or panic disorder, and you're worried about your writing coming off unrealistic to people who have those things. Lucky for you, I have both, and I'm willing to talk about it. So let's do that. Disclaimer, I can only give you information that is true to me. This does not make it true for everyone with GAD and or panic disorder. First thing, because this is a question that I had when I got my second diagnosis, you can have both generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder. I was diagnosed with GAD before I was diagnosed with panic disorder, and when I was asked if that meant that my diagnosis had changed or that I had both, I was told I had both. Your character doesn't have to have both of these, but it is important to understand the difference between the two of them, which is the second thing I want to talk about. Anxiety attacks and panic attacks are not the same. When I have a panic attack, my brain is literally going into fight or flight mode. The biggest symptom for me is that I feel like I can't breathe. This often leads to hyperventilating as I desperately try to feel air hitting my lungs. I haven't passed out yet, but I have gotten close a couple of times. We now have a cozy cat. I also have some or all of the following symptoms, and I am going to read them from a list that I wrote out because my memory sucks. Chest pain, headache, dizziness, nausea, uncontrollable shakes and shivers, numbness in my limbs, inability to focus and difficulty speaking, nervous gestures, inability to stay still, cold chills, rapid heart rate and or weird heartbeats, and I also usually experience the sensation of my throat swelling and difficulty swallowing. I often say that I have forgotten how to swallow. And panic attacks always leave me with fatigue. Triggers include caffeine, alcohol, tornado sirens, nightmares, intrusive thoughts, and nothing at all. As in, sometimes they just happen, out of nowhere. My brain just sounds the alarms and my body goes with it. My panic attacks don't usually last that long, but it varies greatly. It is also easier for me to fight through a panic attack now than it was a few years ago, thanks to knowing what's happening and what helps. The best comparison that I've ever found was to think of that feeling that you get when you miss a step going down the stairs. Now make that feeling worse, take away its reason for being there, and drag it out. My anxiety attacks are a little different. Symptoms include some or all of the following: difficulty breathing, chest pain, headache, nausea, cold chills, rapid heart rate and or weird heartbeats, the swelling sensation and difficulty swallowing, difficulty falling asleep, difficulty focusing, difficulty speaking, nervous gestures, inability to remain still, as well as a weird, intense pressure in my head that I cannot describe, and a sense of dread that weighs on my shoulders so heavy it's the only thing I can think about. Triggers include leaving the house, questioning if I locked the door, even though I know I did, questioning if I did my nightly checks, even though I know I did, oversensitivity to sounds, light, smells, touches, trying new foods, intrusive thoughts, separation anxiety, and nothing at all. Sometimes these just happen too. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, anxiety over having an anxiety attack or a panic attack can also trigger either one. It's fun. Though not always, these often last for hours. And just as it was with panic attacks, it's easier for me to fight through these now than it used to be. It's amazing how much it helps you just to know what's wrong. Your character's experience doesn't have to mirror mine. It doesn't even have to be close, as everyone experiences these things differently. Not everyone has the same symptoms. Not everyone has the same triggers. But if you're someone who doesn't have GAD or panic disorder and you're writing about someone who does, I would encourage you to learn about all the different ways these illnesses affect people who do live with them to find what's right for your character. The third thing I want to cover is what helps me get through an attack. Panic attacks for me usually come on pretty sudden and induce fairly immediate reactions that don't often do much to help. My body's instinct seems to be to physically shake, jerk, or pull myself away from the situation. As soon as I am able to, I start focusing on taking long, slow, deep breaths and doing one of the methods of distractions that I have found to help me. Saying my ABCs forwards and backwards, counting by 3s or 4s, making alphabetical lists, this is the one that I like the most, or just telling myself over and over that I am healthy and fine. If none of that works and my boyfriend is home, I just go lie down with him and he tells me that I'm okay over and over. Until I am. If he's not home, I'll either message or call a friend and they'll talk me through it, which basically means that I tell them the irrational thought that my mind is having and we talk about the reasons why we both know that my mind is wrong. even if I know I'm being irrational, because yes, I am almost always aware of how irrational my anxiety is. It helps me to hear it from someone else. I often use the same method for my anxiety attacks, but I have a few others that I'll try first. All of which are forms of distraction and often are done simultaneously. Watching a comfort show or movie, playing games on my phone, and or lying down wrapped up in a big blanket with the lights off. And even once I'm able to work through an attack of either kind, my energy is drained, which means I'm probably not going to go right back to what I was doing before, unless I'm at work and have no choice. There isn't really a wrong way to have your character pull themselves out of an attack. I'm still looking for and adding new ways to help me. And it should also be noted that sometimes things that used to work stop working after a while. I know my ABCs forwards and backwards so well now that it's not enough of a distraction anymore. And that's fine. I have others and I'm always looking for more. If your character tries something that works one time and you write that it doesn't work the next, totally normal. Or it has been in my experience. Which kind of brings up the fourth thing that I want to talk about. My anxiety and panic are debilitating and affect me every day, but I am able to hold a job. I do experience anxiety at work. I have had attacks at work. In the past, I have even experienced attacks bad enough to have me hiding away in the office until I was able to get back to work. I have always been upfront about my mental health when applying for jobs, making sure to bring it up during the interview process. And it has yet to be an issue. All of my employers were thankful for my honesty and openness and assured me that it wasn't something that would affect their decision. And I got hired all 3 times. I will say though, I have been unofficially told I wouldn't be getting a promotion anymore because I don't take medication for my anxiety. And I did have one manager who didn't respect my comfort levels when it came to certain things in relation to my anxiety. But I think most jobs have that one manager nobody likes to work with, whether you have anxiety or not, and that manager was one of them. Also, I want to note, I do script my videos because I have bad memory and I'm bad at staying on track. And I had scripted this part of this video last night before I went to work. I had written that I hadn't experienced any attacks at my new job yet, and unfortunately, I had one last night. I told my manager that I was having an attack. She had me go to the break room, and they took over on the register. Later, she came to help me finish working through it, allowed me to stay back there to get my eyes to stop being so puffy because I was bawling through most of it. And then I went right back to work. No issues with any of my coworkers or my manager that night. In fact, she bought me cheesecake, so. I can't say that everyone will have that same experience, but I'm fortunate that that has been mine. So if you're writing a character who has severe and debilitating anxiety who is still able to hold a job, it can happen. I can't work full-time and shorter shifts are easier for me, but I do have a job that I'm good at and I love. And if you're writing a character who can't hold a job because of their anxiety, that can also be accurate. When I first got diagnosed with panic disorder, I was also diagnosed with agoraphobia because I was too afraid to leave the house by myself. I was applying for disability and I did not get it. I found the job that let me work at home, and during that time, I was able to very slowly, like over 2.5 years, fight through the agoraphobia and eventually was able to work my way up to leaving the house far enough to find a job very close to home. Which also means that if you're writing a character who used to not be able to hold a job but eventually can, I'm at least one real life story that reflects that. The fourth thing I want to talk about is I am able to be in a healthy relationship. I have been with my boyfriend a little over 7 years. We have lived together all but about 2 weeks of that, and I met him less than 2 months after I started experiencing anxiety and panic, back when I just thought I was dying. He has basically been on this entire journey with me, and it hasn't been easy for either of us. But he's my best friend, my biggest supporter, the first person to put people in their place when they try to say that I'm faking it, and the light that has always kept me going. If you are a writer, or just a person, who sees those posts that say, no one can love you until you love yourself, scroll past and ignore that. My motto is basically, no one can hate me as much as I hate myself when I first met my boyfriend. And it had been for a long time. Here we are 7 years later, and his love for me is what helped me learn to love myself. And it's something I'm still learning every day. So if you're writing about a character with anxiety who is in a healthy relationship and you're wondering if it feels too much like fiction, don't worry about it. It can happen. And I'm living proof. On the opposite side of that though, if you're writing a character with anxiety who is not in a healthy relationship, or can't, won't, doesn't want to hold one at all, these can also be accurate. You know your character and the story that you are writing for them. And the last thing that I want to talk about is that not everyone takes medication for anxiety, and neither choice is wrong. I personally do not take any medication for my anxiety, and there is only one reason behind that. Medicine is one of my triggers. I have had allergic reactions and negative side effects to medicine before, and that combined with my very intense fear of death makes me terrified that I will take a medicine and die. You should have seen the battle that I went through with my mind when I started taking birth control again. And for anyone who is curious, yes, I will be getting the COVID vaccine as soon as I am able to, and yes, I will have a panic attack when I do. Still less scary than the idea of having COVID again. My hope is that someday I will be able to take medication for my mental health. Until then, I've made use of things like therapy and EMDR therapy, both of which have been immensely helpful for me. So if you're writing a character who doesn't take medication for their anxiety, totally fine. And if you're writing a character who does take medication for their anxiety, totally fine. Neither one is wrong, and only you will know what fits your character. So that's what I've got for you. If you have any questions about the things that I went over today, or if I didn't cover a question that you have, please ask in the comments below. Unless you're being creepy or an ass, I'm open to answering pretty much any question you have about my experience with anxiety and panic disorder. Thank you to everyone who supports me. I cannot say enough how much I appreciate it. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want more content like this in your feed, or if you just want to follow my very clumsy journey as a writer living with mental illness, and enjoy the happy moments.